Hello, Ride Property Community. Are we live? Right, can we get some confirmation before we go any further that we are currently broadcasting? So if anybody is online, can you just hit like or jump a comment on, and then we'll get going. So we'll do a little bit of a housekeeping first. I want to wait for a comment to jump in, and then we know that the technology is working. She says, yes, right, we are live. Nicola has confirmed for us. So, hey, how you doing? Hey, awesome. Right, okay, good, we're live. So, firstly, hello to everybody.
Oi, oi.
Oi, oi, Adam. Welcome to Ride Property Community's first live collaboration, which we are doing tonight with the awesome Dan Anson Hart. I'm just going to give him a brief intro, and then I'm going to hand over to Dan to give himself a proper introduction. But firstly, just a little bit of housekeeping first. So this is a bit of new technology that we're just trying out this evening. So bear with us. It's all a bit new, as we all are to doing this. So yeah, if you haven't already, just click on the link to StreamYard just to say you give permission to allow your picture and your name to come up on the comments. And in fact, so I can, so just to give you a little bit of real time, I can then show these comments as we go. So it's really interactive. So you see Facebook user there, whoever that was, you need to say that you give permission, and then you'll have your face and your name up on there. But yeah, that's how it's going to roll tonight. Trying something a little bit new. But yeah, firstly, Dan Anson Hart, we've known each other now for probably a couple of, like, maybe 3-4 months, 5 months. Time goes really quickly, maybe a little bit longer. So Dan is based down in the southwest. He's over the bridge to us over in Cornwall. Dan has we've certainly been doing rent-to-rent strategy for about a year now. He is absolutely smashing it. He's got 7 rent-to-rent properties. He's definitely been someone that we have followed for the last kind of 5-6 months, I would say, and we've picked up loads of tips from Dan. We send each other voice notes pretty much every single day, and we kind of just give each other that accountability, which is really, really nice. And yeah, Dan set up an amazing WhatsApp group. HMO, rent-to-rent, hints and tips, where there's a lot of people getting a lot of value out of that WhatsApp group, where everyone can just kind of communicate with each other and just support each other, which is why we are doing what we're doing today. So from that, it became quite apparent that we were getting asked a lot of the same questions. So we just thought, let's just do something where we can get as much exposure out there, and just try and help as many people as we can in one hit, and then we can refer back to it and just answer people's questions and just go from there. So without further ado, I just want to pass it over to the amazing and incredible Dan Anson Hart. Over to you.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you so much, and thanks. And you guys are doing some amazing stuff. Like, even what the hell is going on here? I haven't got a clue. First of all, apologies. One, if I've got bad signal. I live in Cornwall. We've only just found the internet. And second of all, we're not safe in my kitchen until about 10 past, because I've got little ones running around just outside the door. So I do apologise if we get bombarded. But thanks for the intro, girls, and I massively appreciate it. And again, you talk about what I've achieved. The fact that you've achieved pretty much everything I've done so far, that you've done it in about 5 months, let alone for me 12 months, is just unreal. So massive well done. And yeah, mutual admiration for you guys too. So yeah, I guess for me, started about a year ago, officially took on our first rent-to-rent. It was last July, and it's just kind of snowballed from there, really, which has been a great education. I've made a few mistakes along the way, as we're not shy to share it, and that's the whole reason we're here tonight. It's just to help, hopefully, others not make the same mistakes, I suppose. But yeah, I suppose it's a case of, we guys are here. Some people are appreciating watching this thinking, what the hell is rent-to-rent? And some are beginning thinking, okay, sell me rent-to-rent. Like, how because I was exactly the same as that. I was thinking, why do we want to be doing rent to rent? Because it's essentially putting money into someone else's house, so you're not going to own the asset. And I know Lucy and Steph had the same thought process initially. Is that right? You thought the same?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, just so we can let everyone know, the way we're going to kind of structure this evening's live is we all had a bit of a pre-conflab before we jumped on, and like we've chatted about some areas that we get asked around a lot. So we're going to try and cover some topics this evening. We want it to be as interactive as possible. So we want people to try and ask questions, and again, we will try and answer them if we can. So we're gonna rattle through some topics. We could probably talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Good experiences, bad experiences, what to do, what not to do, mistakes that we've made. But we're going to try and limit this if we can to about an hour. So please get your questions up. I'll try and log them. So like, this is quite an interactive platform for those of you that have not used StreamYard before. Like, if you want to do broadcasts and stuff, I would definitely recommend using it, because so far so good. It's a really, it feels like a really user-friendly system. So I guess really the first kind of topic that we were going to cover is, so what is rent to rent, and why Dan and us two like picked this particular strategy. So I guess, Dan, if you wanted to just kick off with what is rent to you, and why do you use this particular strategy, and then we'll just we'll
no, definitely
freestyle it.
We'll just go to and fro. And for me, to be honest, it started, what was I trying to achieve? I needed cash flow. Long term, my aim is to get myself out of the day job, so I've got more freedom for the family. And for me, there was, with limited funds, there was two main ways of getting cash flow, and that for me was from my research and just listening and learning and educating myself, was either deal sourcing, deal packaging, or rent to rent. They seem to be the highest cash flowing strategies for the least amount of input initially, investment initially. So I initially started looking at deal packaging, but I just didn't have the time. Well, I then looked into rent to rent, and that's where it's just snowballed from there. So what is rent to rent? It is for me, I see it as massively a short-term strategy, because it's short-term leases on, well, essentially they're long-term, I suppose, if you see it like that, but it's not long-term as in an asset at the end of it. So apologies, my internet's not the greatest, bear with me. But so we've got generally 3 to 5 year leases on the properties that we manage. So we'll go to a landlord and we'll say, look, how would you like us to manage your property? Guarantee you the rent for X amount of time. So 5 year period, we'll offer you X amount every single month for the duration of that contract. And a lot of the time people are thinking, we had one question come in today, just like, well, why would a landlord do that? But the pains of landlords and HMOs are having to always have to go around and sort out maintenance issues, social issues in the house where tenants don't get on. There's loads of things that constantly go wrong. And you can imagine doing that for a few years, that the headache that it could cause a landlord if they've got 1, 2, 3, or even more. So it's just finding the right motivated landlords that need some help and want kind of hands-free service. So the idea is rent to rent is we're essentially leasing the property from a landlord for a duration of time. We will then rent the property's rooms out on a room by room basis, get all the rent in, pay all the bills, pay the landlord their rent, and then anything left over in the pot at the end of the month is then our profit. That essentially is what we're doing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Like, do you want to chat about why we picked rent to rent?
Yeah,
I mean, a strategy.
A lot of the reasons that Dan has said resonate as well with us. We went to a Masopi about, was it last May?
Yeah, last May. So
and
for those that don't know what Masopi means,
what's it stand for?
Multiple streams of property income.
Progressives kind of get you in the door, sell you loads of stuff type stuff.
But it's a good, I mean, if they do start back up again, once obviously we're allowed to kind of meet en masse, that, I would definitely recommend that personally as a really good kind of one shop, one-stop shop to getting a bit of an oversight of all the different strategies out there. And it's certainly where we started our journey. So we became kind of accidental landlords, as a lot of people do, and especially kind of both being in the military. That kind of happened for us. But I would say that was really the first place that we kind of discovered.
At that point, we had 2 single lets, and we were just trying to broaden our horizons. We thought that the way you did property was just single lets by single let by single let. I went to Misopi, and I guess it's like an entry-level course over 3 days where you get exposed to all the different ways that you can do property to earn income. And one of those sessions was Rent-to-Rent. It was done by Kevin McDonald, for those who know him. And he just kind of really hit a nerve with us and inspired us, I guess. And we were like, that is what we want to do. And I guess the way he sold it was that, you know, people who don't necessarily have big pots of money that can put it down, what it does, as Dan says, it allows you to build cash flow. And so we essentially, I've got two side-by-side businesses, one that is our buy and hold company and one that's our property management company. And our property management company is the rent-to-rent side. And what we're doing with that, and the idea is that we build up cash flow that we can then move into our buy and hold business to be able to buy and hold long-term investments. So as Dan said, it's a short-term strategy to build cash flow for our long-term assets and investments.
But I mean, I guess jumping in there just to say, like, rent to a lot of people is a short-term fix to get themselves some cash, get a pot of money to be able to kind of throw down on assets, you know, to build your portfolio. And we definitely see it as that, but we also, you know, we definitely also see this as an opportunity to just be a business in its own right. So for us, you know, Steph already mentioned we have Ride Property, which is our buy and hold company, and Ride Lifestyles, which is our company for, you know, rent-to-rent property management, much more tenant facing. But actually, in a very short period of time, we've gone from 0 to 7 very quickly, which, you know, is a headache in itself, which we can come on to. But, you know, we're already starting to now get agents coming to us wanting to work together. And actually, if we did it in the right way and scaled in the right way and employed staff at the right time, this could actually be a business in its own right that, you know, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time, we could sell that as a business. Now, we're not experts in that right now, but you know, that's just another kind of thought process that we are now starting to have. You've built the credibility in your area, you've got the network of people around you, you've got your power team, you know, you've got your foundations, you've got your systems in place. Why can't that be, you know, a business in its own right? And a lot of people do that very successfully. So a short-term strategy, but doesn't necessarily need to be either.
No, at all. And I definitely jump on that, Luce, and say that although it's a short-term strategy, there's no reason why it couldn't be longer. It's just, I think for me in my head, I see it as kind of like, I see it as a ticking time bomb. Is these contracts, if they could, the landlords may not want to renew. But at the end of it, then that income is gone. So I'm using this as, right, I've got a timeline of, I've got these properties from now till then. I need to make sure that it sits to kind of replace that should anything happen. But long term, I'd like to keep hold of this as a business, as you said. And who knows, you sell the business, you keep hold of it as an income on the side and systemize it as best you can. But there's so many opportunities. But the key is obviously getting yourself started, getting cash flow.
This is what happens, guys, when you live in the darkest, deepest corners of the southwest. So
I should pay my bills, really.
I didn't know they had internet in Cornwall, so we're doing well.
Doing really well.
I'm dialing in.
And Andrew's just asked how we actually get the deals. We are going to come on to that, Andrew. So stand by.
We are going to come on to that. So we are going to try and be a little bit regimented, and that's the military in us coming out to try and keep it on schedule, because we could literally just like talk about this all night. So that's kind of talks about what Rent-to-Rent is as a strategy, I guess. And again, if anyone's got any more questions on going a bit deeper into that, then please jump on. And then kind of how we got started. So, you know, as Steph's already alluded to, you know, we did the Misopi. We then jumped onto Kevin McDonald's No Money Down masterclass. Did you mention that before? No. So, and again, you know, I know there was a thread in the group a couple of days ago that talked about kind of training courses, and you know, people have their own opinions on that, and absolutely, you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Everyone's had a different journey, but you know, our journey, you know, we did the Misopi, and we took a lot from Misopi. We then jumped onto the masterclass, which was a 3-day with Kevin McDonald, again with Progressive, and you know, we took a lot from that. Yes, there's an upsell, and we actually, we did sign on to the mastermind. We've had to delay it because of COVID and because of military commitments. That's a different story. But we took a lot from that. But what we definitely did take is that we needed to take action. So we got the training, we got educated, and that's one of the points that we wanted to talk about tonight is, we got educated, absolutely. And we put some money in at the front end to do that. But then, we took action off the back of it. So we didn't just do the course and not do anything with it. The weekend that we got back from the course, we went and got our leaflets made up. We got our D2V letter sorted. We went and walked our patch. We started kind of jumping in networking groups. We went full steam ahead. So, education is so important. But what's the saying that an ounce of action will beat a ton of knowledge. So that's kind of our journey, I guess, over the last year is very much been that education piece. And off the back of that, we're both on, we're mentees of the Blue Oak expedition. So Troop 001, we're both members of that. Granted, we've only had a couple of sessions before lockdown, but we're big believers in investing in ourselves, investing in the people around us, getting that network, and just getting those mentors that have been have got way more experience than us. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but that's kind of our education and our short-term story. And again, we've only been doing rent-to-rent. We only got our first rent-to-rent deal in February. We're now at number 7. Yes, action is absolutely important, but I believe that the education, the books, the podcasts, all that stuff has massively played a part of that. I don't know if you agree, Dan, with I know you've had a slightly different approach to the education piece.
Well, that's what I love about it, is because there's no right or wrong way of doing it, Liz, and you've done it a completely different way I've done it, but we've both got to the same sort of end goal. We've both getting along and just coming at it at a different angle. So yeah, I completely agree. You've got to know what you're talking about. And again, I hope my internet keeps in with you. You've got to know what you're talking about, and in order to get that confidence and that knowledge, you've got to get on training. You've got to do some training, get to speaking with people who are experienced in the field. So yeah, I did Francis Dolly's multi-let cash flow system course. It was just a one-day event. Really good event. I speak very highly of Francis and Will Matthews, who's his partner in crime in that one. But yeah, really great event. Light-hearted, great humour, really informative, and all it is a case of, if you go on these events, and again, there's nothing wrong about going progressive or doing the masterclass or anything like that, as long as you put into practice what you're being taught. You can't just sit at home and think, oh well, it's not, what a load of rubbish this is, it's not working for me. Well, how long have you actually tried it? And I guarantee I didn't get my first deal. I didn't get I only just got my third opportunity over the line in rent-to-rent, but no one sees that. No one sees all the hard graft behind the door and behind the scenes. They just see what you're on now. Like, you've got, I can't believe, even when you say it then, since February, you've got 7 rent-to-rents. That's absolutely unreal, ladies. And so massive kudos to you and well done again. But how many have you missed out on? Like, no one sees that. No one sees all the late nights and the early mornings and the constant headaches with tenants. No one sees that. And I think that's why it's so important to do these sort of lives and share the reals of it. With everyone. But no, I did training with Francis Dolly in the multi-let cash flow system and went from there.
With rent-to-rent, like many property strategies, there's only one difference between the people that make it and the people that don't, and that's persistence. And it's a very clear pathway to success. To get in deals, it just takes some people longer than others. If you are persistent and you follow that pathway that's outlined, there's no reason why you won't be successful. For everyone, it takes a little bit different, being in the right place at the right time for deals, definitely. But if you follow that set pathway, then there's no reason why you can't be successful. It's just persistence.
So I think a question that we get asked loads is kind of how to source. And Dan, we've probably gone off. We've kind of gone away from the schedule a little bit of who's saying what. I'm just aware that your signal is
no, you crack on.
broken at the minute. So, like, in terms of how and every single area is going to be slightly different, and a lot of people that reach out to me, I've noticed, are kind of London based that are struggling. So I guess there's got to be some kind of appreciation for what area or region that you're in, and I guess that kind of comes down to just knowing your area, what the supply is, what the demand is, how I guess you need to set yourself apart from the crowd. so to speak. So kind of, Andrew, great comment. Absolutely, yeah, couldn't agree more with that comment. So in terms of like sourcing, there's lots of ways to source. The standard way is the D2V letter, the HMO letter, where you're very much targeting a potentially very motivated audience. And it's probably worthwhile actually getting Sam's question up at this point.
Does everyone know what the HMO letter is? Is there any? If you don't know, just write a comment and we'll explain what we mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, we can actually explain it anyway.
Yeah, go on.
So the HMO letter essentially is a letter that you're targeting HMO registered landlords, and you're essentially kind of offering your services and how you can take away pain, which is essentially what you're trying to do. And the people that will reply back to you will be the people that are in pain. So they're generally going to be landlords that have HMOs that aren't doing very well. That's why they're getting hold of you. If they had HMOs that they were fully occupied, they were running like clockwork, they wouldn't reply. So as soon as you get that reply from somebody from a letter, you've got a motivated lead there, and that's kind of goes without saying. So, there's loads of ways you can skin a cat with these letters. And, if you've been on a particular property training course, I'm sure everyone has got one of those sticks that's got various different formats of letters in it. And for us, we've tried to make it, we tried to put our spin on that. We probably started off not that professional and corporate. We didn't have any branding on to begin with. It was handwritten letters. But actually that worked really well, and we got really good response rate. And I'd say it was probably about 10%. Is that fair? Am I over-egging that?
A bit less, maybe.
Yeah, maybe about 8%. A decent response rate. And actually we've moved through that process of going from quite very informal letters to now we use doc mail, and we've systemised it and we've automated it, and we've got all of our branding on there. And I don't know if we're getting more or less. I'd probably say it's the same response rate, but what it is doing is making our life easier. So that's again when you're moving on to trying to make things as passive as possible and trying to make it a business, it's then trying to make find these ways that you can try and just make your life easier.
There isn't a right or wrong way to do the letters, and whether you go corporate and professional or kind of more whether you go family orientated or informal, different people are going to be attracted to different styles of marketing. And just because you do it one way, you're probably just going to target a particular group of people, whether that's the right or wrong group. And if you do it another way, it'll just be a different group of people. But there is definitely no right or wrong way to do it. It's more about the content of what you're saying, really, rather than what it looks like.
Yeah. So have you got anything else to add on letters there, Dan?
Yeah, no, if I'm honest, my letters have been quite professional. When I was trying to start myself up in sourcing, I was doing handwritten letters because I was trying to I wanted to be seen as a small family kind of buyer investor. But what I've found is I need to make my letters seem more professional now. So yeah, I've been looking at more professional letters, and it seems to work. But don't get me wrong, I sent 250, 300 letters out initially, 5 replies. From the 5 replies, I managed to convert 3. So yeah, the numbers, direct to vendor marketing has definitely been the way I've done it. I know, was it Andrew asked earlier, have you gone through agents? I've not. We chatted about this the other day, Lucy, didn't we? Where on the HMO register, it says the landlord's name, and it says to the agency. And generally, I've only sent letters out to on the HMO register those that are managed by the owners. So I think they're the most motivated. But I know that you guys had that discussion as well, and I think I was in the same court as Steph, but Lucy said no, and you've actually had some success from that as a result, haven't you?
Yeah, no, exactly that. And when we were sending out our first batch of letters, I think you didn't want to send out to agents, and I just said sod it, let's just send them all. You never know. And And actually fast forward 6 months, because that was the very first batch, we've now had like 2 sit down, felt like interviews with the local agents who, they're very well established letting agents in our area, and we're looking to potentially partner up, and for them at the minute they're very much student based, so a lot of their houses right now are not full. So that's something that I think, obviously with COVID as well happening, I mean, in our area anyway, the student market was kind of on the downward kind of, trajectory, I would say. And now COVID's come in, it's even worse. So there's a lot of like landlords at the minute that are struggling to fill their student houses. So there is kind of absolute opportunity right now. But more so, kind of these agencies that are, offering fully managed services, for instance, for HMO landlords, are now not able to get those houses full, and it's August, so there's people getting very, very nervous right now.
Squeaky bum time.
Squeaky bum time. 50p 2p. So so that's kind of how it's come around.
There's been a few questions, Lucy. I think they're quite good questions, so sorry to jump in there. I was going to say, there's a few questions coming in, Lucy, and like, how often do you send your letters out? Do you just do one set letter and it's done with, or do you follow it up?
So do you want to answer that?
Well, we have just systemised, as Lucy said. So we use DocMail, which for anyone that doesn't know is a online website where you can you pay them a set amount, and then you upload your template and you upload your HMO register spreadsheet. Is that right? Or is it a spreadsheet? It's the Excel spreadsheet.
It's Excel, yeah.
And then it literally just pulls all the information out and mail merges it for you. And then you can choose the frequency and the amount, and it's going to depend on how big your area is, and other factors. I think we do about 50, probably less, maybe every 3 months, something like that. We've not actually done many batches. I'd probably say we've only done 3 or 4 batches, of about 25 to 50 each time.
But actually doing it the DocMail way, it works out. I think I worked it out as 61p per letter. So that's stamps included, that's the envelope included, that's the ink, that's everything, that's your time, which is obviously so important. So 60p for a letter,
it's the cheapest we've found it.
It's pretty good. I mean, there is, again, there's lots of ways you can skin a cat. There's different places like Stamp, STANNP. So that's a good cheap way that you could try and systemize it and automate it.
We've paid people to put an envelope. Sorry, Dan. Go on, Dan.
If you want to know cheap, I'll tell you how I do it.
With your stamps.
Yeah,
I know. Guy.
Well, I've got a stamp guy. Yeah, I can get slightly under market value stamps. But no, it's a case of completely with the HMO registers in Cornwall. They're all on PDF, so that's an absolute nightmare. So I actually hired one of my VA at the time. I got her to scrape all of the PDF document onto an Excel spreadsheet, and I just use mail merge on Excel. And we've been doing it that way. But I'm just going back to a question that was up on, I saw come up, how often do I do it? We have actually got 4 different letters that I send out. So letter 1, we'd send out, this obviously at the start, the first letter we send out. If we haven't heard, this is when we're going hard this year, but then I send a second follow-up letter about 2 weeks later. And then every 2 weeks, I'd send the next stage of letters. And I found that the landlords that responded were, once I got really pissed off with me, or it kind of got a bit, you know what, let's have a little chat with this guy. So that's, again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Like, I've done something completely different way to you, and it still worked. So that's what I'd like to kind of get the message out there. There's not a right or wrong way. There's just so many different ways. You've just got to trial and test it.
You've just got to put yourself out there, and like Dan said, it's an opportunist moment. So you could get a landlord that at that particular time isn't in too much distress, and they could pick up your letter and they could just maybe put it to one side, and then 3 months later you could end up getting a phone call, which is what's definitely has happened to us. And from a personal point of view, I don't think it really matters what's on the letter. I don't really think it matters if it's handwritten or if it's printed, or if it's got a second class stamp on it or a first class stamp. I personally don't think it matters. I think it's just that particular opportunity, that moment, whether or not somebody is going to actually follow up on your letter. So I'm just looking back at some questions and trying to track stuff. So Jennifer, is it doc? So it's doc, DOC mail. So yeah, about 60p. Once you set it up, it's fairly intuitive, and it's again, it just saves you some time.
Someone's asked there, how do you pinpoint areas where HMO could work? This is obviously really important, because there's no point flogging a dead horse and trying to do HMO where there's no HMOs, or where there's not enough HMOs. We've just lost the screen, but hopefully you can still see it.
There we go.
Yeah, it's all good.
So some of the basic things about where HMOs could work. Well, firstly, if you ask the council for the register and there's 5 properties on it, you're probably not going to get very far. And people have done that where there's, maybe less than 100 properties. There's a very small market there. There's probably already people doing rent-to-rent and similar strategies. So, you're looking for somewhere. I don't know what the right number would be. In Plymouth, there's probably about 800 to 1,000 HMOs. We've only really targeted a really small number. We've maybe sent out, I don't know, maybe 100.
No, probably about 200.
200, but probably hit up some twice, anyway. But key things for HMOs is like, have you got a big local hospital? It doesn't have to be big, but a district general or a teaching hospital? Is there a university? Is there any big businesses? So down where we are, there's the dockyard with Babcock, which is a big corporation, loads of contract work. So they're the things you're looking at, sort of big institutions, big hospitals, universities. And a young crowd, really, a young crowd of working professionals, if working professionals is what you decide to go for.
And again, I guess even that, deciding what your target audience is, even within that audience. So are you looking for blue collar workers? Are you looking for white collar? Are you looking for DSS, universal credit? Are you looking for students? Like what, figuring out what that particular strategy is and actually where that's going to potentially work. So you're not going to do very well getting a student HMO that's nowhere near the university, because probably none of them drive and they just want to be close. So I guess it's just kind of, Rich talks about it all the time, is that kind of that analysis of your area, of just understanding your area. And for us in our area, which is Plymouth, we've actually only been here for 18 months, 2 years maybe, if that. And it's only really now that we're really truly starting to feel like we are knowing each individual area, and actually we wouldn't necessarily go and get HMO on that street because that's really dodgy, but actually 2 streets down it's absolutely fine. So I guess it's those kind of like attention to detail of just understanding that area.
We also spent some time walking the patch, and in fact I think we did some leafleting initially, and we actually just walked it and did it ourselves, didn't we, just to learn some of the streets in our area. And there's certain things you can look out for that are telltale signs of a HMO. Normally like a front garden that's not been well kept, maybe a few kebab wrappers or something like that, but also tons of bins. That's a really big sign. If there's like 20 bins outside a small house, it's probably a HMO. But yeah, there is little keys, maybe a board as well, like an agent board, rooms for rent or something like that.
I'm just seeing it. We're kind of going off track here because there's questions, but there's good questions to answer, and I don't want to miss them.
I'm just to put a bit of spin on that. You said you had 800 HMOs in Plymouth. I'm based in Cornwall, and we've got our HMOs are all in Falmouth, where there's. I looked in Cornwall because Cornwall's not a big place in terms of numbers, population. So for me, I had to find. I was looking at Plymouth to start with. It was just geographically, I just thought it's just if things go on, I'm not someone I want to be having to trek to, but I had to look on which areas of Cornwall are the most populated, and it just happened to be that although Falmouth isn't the capital of Cornwall, it actually has the highest population in Cornwall, has a university, hospital, so it naturally then steered me that direction. And it was at that point where you start then downloading the HMO register, and you can see, as you rightly said, Steph, how many HMOs are there, how many have I got to play with. So we've only got about 150 to 200 HMOs in Falmouth area. So it's slightly smaller net, but still, it doesn't mean it's not a goer. That's for sure. And again, I'm not saying that to you. It's more guys to listening.
Oh,
but
no, totally.
It's definitely have a little go and just test the water. Put your foot in the water, try it, send a couple of letters. Who knows? And also look on the register, because it will tell you if you can get hold of it easily. It'll tell you who the managers of the properties are, and you can then probably do some research into the managers. Who are they? Are they big agents? Are they small agents? You're getting a good feel for it that way. That's for sure.
And I guess like with the HMO register as well, for those that don't know, I think most councils don't charge for them. Some councils may charge a small amount. I think we've got a property up in Bicester, and we started to look at that particular area for HMOs, and I think we were charged £80 for that particular register. I don't think we were charged anything for Plymouth, or it might be the other way around.
I think it was 40 quid for Plymouth.
My point is, some councils will charge, some won't. I think technically with the Freedom of Information Act, I don't think they technically can.
I think the Housing Act does say that it's meant to be freely accessible, but they just do it anyway. Like, it's an admin cost, whatever that means.
And so I think some can be pretty difficult. Some can refuse to give you the actual document, and I've heard of people that have had to go in and slyly take screenshots with their phone to get the information. But
I think we're just so much more chilled down in the southwest. Exeter, you can just go onto the council website and download it, as with Cornwall. Like, there's no gatekeepers or anything. It's nuts.
I think the main point is just if you haven't already and you're thinking about doing HMOs, rent to rent or otherwise, I think you just need to obviously give your housing officer a call. Some councils have a specified HMO officer, some just have a housing officer. Just go on the council website and get the number and just start making comms with them and see what you need to do. So I just want to hit some of these questions before we kind of move on.
About the bedrooms? Yeah, this one.
Yeah, so Mahal, so do 3 beds into 4 beds work financially? Oh, so 3 beds into 4 beds, is there a minimum number of? So my opinion would be every single deal is different. Like me and Dan have been talking this week about 4 beds, and actually 4 beds can actually be really, really nice to run, because they're they're smaller, so you've got less tenants to have to worry about. But also, if you're targeting more of a professional market, it's more desirable for the less rooms. So if you've got a 4 bed, it's going to be far more desirable to a kind of I don't know, slightly older professional that's or maybe even a white collar that's looking for a smaller house share in comparison. So demand would be more. You've got less work to do. And generally they just run easier than 5 beds from our very limited experience so far. In terms of getting the numbers to work, I think, again, it just comes down to the negotiation with that particular landlord, how motivated that particular landlord is. But you have to ensure that you are protected against risk. So the way that we do our numbers, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but in terms of calculations, the way that we do ours is we use the 1.5 rule. So that's what we learned from No Money Down, was the 1.5. We've not necessarily always stuck to that, and we've got deals that are less than that, maybe 1.25.
Do you want to explain what the 1.5 rule is?
So the 1.5 rule is essentially you want to protect yourself against void. So if you've got a 5 bed HMO, you want to make sure that if one room plus half a room is empty, you're still in profit. Because as soon as it kind of gets to that area where if you've got one room not full, you're not in profit, you're working for nothing, and potentially you're at a loss. So if you're committed to paying a guaranteed income to a landlord for 5 years, you need to be protecting yourself as much as you possibly can against void periods. So that's kind of how we loosely work that out. So we'll work out what 1.5 rent is. So if a room was £600 a month, 1.5 of that would be, quick maths, would be 750. Is that right? 900 shit maths would be £900. So that's what we'd have to pay ourselves first before working out the rest of the numbers, if that makes sense. So you pay yourself first just to make sure you're protected against voids. Sorry, good, Dan, go on.
Just to jump in, an easy numbers example is if the average room is £500 a month, you want to be making sure you're making about £750 profit, because if that £500 room is empty, you need that little buffer, don't you?
Definitely.
That's essentially it. Yeah.
And because HMOs, again, we're like, you know, rent to rent, or you own them, or what, you know, they are manpower intensive. They are, you know, it's a busy strategy. You know, there's no getting away from that. And I don't think we fully appreciated that until we, you know, kind of started, you know, rolling on. And we probably didn't help ourselves taking on as many as we did concurrently. But that said, you know, it is you know, it is time intensive. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to be doing it for peanuts, because it's not worth your time. And yeah, it's a great strategy in terms of cash flow, but if you're working like an absolute dog and you're making the minimum, you're tied into that deal for, you know, 3 to 5 years. So, you know, obviously the numbers need to work. You need to have done your due diligence to make sure that you're confident that you can fill the rooms at X amount of money, you know, etc., etc. So
it's a numbers game at the end of the day. You have to stick to the numbers and don't let emotions get into it. If it's the first one that you get through, you know, over the line, if the numbers aren't adding up, then they're not adding up, and it's a no, unless you can get the landlord to negotiate a lower rent. There will be more deals, but if the numbers don't add up, do not go for it, because it's going to be 5 years of losing money. And you've just got to be so careful about that and not kind of let your emotions get in the way, as with any investment, I guess.
Yeah. So Sean's asked, are all your rooms en suite? For us,
None
no. Oh, actually, we've just put one shower in one of the double bedrooms of one of our first one, actually.
So every council will have a slightly, so there's the basic amenity standards of what you need to stick to. So number of rooms per, and then how many bathrooms per person, etc., etc. Every council will have a slightly different take on that, so may impose even higher standards of how many bathrooms per person, if you need a living area, all those sorts of things. So it's really useful to get your local council's guidance, which will be available on the internet, just to make sure that you've got enough. And therefore the ensuite that we put in is because we want to get 6 people into a property that's currently licensed as a 5-bed, but it needs an extra shower to be able for us to be able to do that. So we've put an ensuite in to get that right.
I mean, the you know, a bit of context to that particular story, that particular HMO, we let that in one go to 5 Filipino nurses that work in our local hospital. So we did it in one hit, which was an absolute godsend, and that is like jackpot every single day, and they're going to be long term. You know, we gave them all a discount, and you know, right at the beginning, you know, we were picking them all up from the hospital because they were in temporary accommodation at the hospital. They just come over, they got I think a month's worth of free accommodation. They needed to get themselves sorted, didn't have any transport. We went and picked them up in 2 cars, took them over to the property, you know. But
they're the dream tenants.
They're the dream tenants.
They told us they didn't want a cleaner because they would be cleaning it themselves. So they have a little rota on their kitchen wall of who's cleaning. Yeah. We're like, this is amazing. It's always spotless when we go around.
But yeah, the story with that is one of them, and that was always the plan, was bringing her husband over from the Philippines. So he's coming over, hence why she's in the biggest double, and that was always going to be the plan. So we needed to put an extra ensuite in that property. But you know, going back to the question. At the minute, no, ours aren't all en suite. But again, we place ourselves in the market where, you know, we know what our target audience is. We, you know, in Plymouth, there's you know, there's a lot of shit on the market, and I guess that's the same in most you know, most HMO cities. You know, there's a lot of crap out there. So you know, we know that we're not at the top end. You know, we're not the all singing, all dancing, you know, newly kind of renovated HMOs that have all got en suites, because that's not the strategy. We don't have the investment at the front end to do that. So I've lost my train of thought, so I just saw a question.
It's also that there's not really a market where we are for that. This is quite a low requirement. Even just looking for your spare room, you'll see that there's not that much of a budget that people have. A lot of people say they want ensuite, but they clearly can't afford it when you look at their budget. So actually we market ourselves at just the kind of the top of the blue collar section of society, and that's where the majority of our business comes from, and that's just Plymouth. That's just what people need, but it'll be different in every city, and that's why it's important to make sure you know who your audience is.
Okay, so yeah, so in question really to the 4, so going back to the 4-bed question, which I've lost somewhere. It's, you know, and again, me and Dan, we've been having these conversations this week back and forth on voice notes, and we've both got 4-bed HMOs that we are kind of profiting around about the 650 mark. For a 4-bed, that doesn't really take much effort. So I guess in terms of the numbers, it will depend on what the bottom line is for your particular landlord that you're negotiating with. But I'd say you need to pick a number. Like, would we have not taken it for if it was £500 a month? I don't know. We probably would have. I think and again, that's why sometimes that 1.5 doesn't necessarily always fit, because you have to be flexible to this stuff and actually be realistic with knowing that a 4-bed doesn't necessarily take that much effort. Therefore, I'll take £500 all day long. Because apart from anything, it opens up other opportunities with landlords, which it definitely has for us.
It's a balance, because the more people generally in a HMO, the more you're going to get. You're going to get an economy of scale, so your bills are going to be slightly less per person, and you're going to get more rent at the end of the day. However, you probably can't charge as much for those rooms when you've got 6 people in a house, whereas with 4 people in a house, your margins with bills and things are going to be less, but actually you can charge more for the room. So actually it probably balances out between like a 4 and a 5-bed, I'd say. And 4 beds are easy to run. So
and also I think that might be, just jump in there, that might be looking at non-existing HMOs as well, because all of the HMOs I've taken on, I think you are the same, are existing HMOs, aren't they? So we've not taken a standard house and converted it into a HMO.
No, so some of ours haven't had licenses, so they've been house shares.
You've gone from 4 to 5.
Yes, we've done that a few times now.
Plymouth's an Article 4 area, so for those that don't know, that means you need planning permission to change a family home into a HMO, or it needs to have grandfather rights in that it's been used as a HMO since 2012, I think it was. Not all towns and cities will have Article 4, so it's really important, again, to check your local area and to see what the planning rules are around that. But so we've not been able to do that in Plymouth just because of that Article 4. I don't know, is that the same in Falmouth?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Article 4 in Falmouth. Literally, you go one step out into Penryn. It's not so much the case, but
I mean, just diving on the back of Rich's live that he did a couple of nights ago, again on like this deal analysis in terms of just deal analysis is a general rule, and he was talking about the SHARMA, which is the Strategic Housing Plan. And in my opinion, Article 4 is only going to get bigger. So if you could find where the outline of your Article 4 is at the minute, and you can secure, and this is probably more kind of investing, but if you could purchase something that you could turn into a HMO that's not Article 4 now, but fairly soon it's potentially going to be. That's adding that's adding substantial amount of value onto that particular property. So because then HMOs that are licensed in an Article 4 area are worth a hell of a lot of money compared to those that are not.
I was almost really put off by Article 4 because if I went on the Cornwall Council website, I type in Article 4, we've got an interactive map and it tells you all the areas it's highlighted in blue which are Article 4, and I thought whole of bloody Cornwall is Article 4. Until I rang up the council, and I actually rang up council and the planning, and I said, well, look, I was talking about Article 4 for HMOs. I said, oh no, it's only Falmouth that's HMO Article 4 and Newquay. I was like, so there's only two towns in the whole county, but the whole county is the Article 4. But Article 4 is a planning restriction. It doesn't mean it's just HMOs. It could be offices. They're not happy to convert offices. So it is worth picking up the phone. Don't be put off just because you see it's Article 4. It may not necessarily mean it's for HMOs. That's something I definitely learned. So that's if that helps anyone.
So I think this next question, which probably takes us on quite nicely to the next topic of refurbs. And again, just to remind anybody that's not clicked the link that says, it's at the bottom of the narrative that says StreamYard. If you click that link, it literally, you just have to then press OK, and it'll allow your picture and your name to come up on the screen when we show the comments, just for information, just so you know. You might not want your picture up there. But so this next question really about kind of refurbs and I guess, kind of calculations on with regards to refurb. So the way that we do it is, and again, the rule of thumb is the profit that we would make, that we would calculate that we would make on a monthly basis, we'll then times that by 6, and we'll look to spend up to 6 months worth of money on that particular HMO. So essentially by month 7, we're in profit. So essentially we work out what the profit margins are for the first 6 months. That gives us our pot of money that we can then put down on the refurb to bring it up to standard, because most of them are, you know, grotty, rundown, tired HMOs that just need bringing back to life. And you're going to need more than just a lick of paint to be able to do that. Sometimes more, you know, there's definitely a range, but that's where your numbers are going to, you know, massively come in to the forefront. But yeah, we take that 6 month figure. And have we gone over a little bit? And has it sometimes taken us 7 months? Yeah. Would you not take on a deal because it's over 6 months? No, because you're talking about, you know,
a 5-year lease,
a 60-month deal. So, you know, as long as you're careful, you're not too blasé, and you know that you know your figures. But yeah, in terms of, you know, what we would put in at the front end, definitely, you know, for us, you know, we wouldn't be looking to install en-suites throughout or refurbing kitchens because the budget just isn't there. You know, typically if we were looking at making, I don't know, I'm just trying to keep the maths quick, you know, the maths easy in my mind, she says, but you know, if you were going to, like, just say you're going to be making £1,000 a month on a big HMO, you know, you're talking about, you know, £6,000 to be able to put into that particular refurb.
It's not much money.
It's not much. Like, you know, if you're talking, you know, if you're making £1,000 a month on a HMO, you've either got it for peanuts, or it's a big property.
You live in London?
You live in London, yeah, you live in London. But, you know, essentially, if it's a big, massive HMO and you're able to make that kind of margin, I would say it's run down to start with for you to be able to calculate to try and make that kind of margin. But yeah, like Steph said, £6,000 in that model is not going to go very far at all. So for us, in terms of refurbs, we, you know, you try and do less with more. You know, repaints, you know, just bringing things back to life, new curtains, or, you know, new lampshades, you know, kind of new furnishings around the property, buying things off marketplace. You know, we've got some absolute, and I know you have as well, Dan, got some amazing deals off just Facebook Marketplace of, you know, leather sofas that you can put in the communal areas. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. You know, picking up kind of 40-inch smart TVs, you know, at discount, you know, just, you know, putting a feature wall in just to brighten it up. But, you know, it's certainly not kind of ripping out kitchens because the margins just aren't there. I mean, we have just had to recarpet one of our properties because there was a moth issue which we weren't aware of. You know, and again, that probably ties into just making sure that you do your due diligence when you're going around and you're viewing these properties. Make sure you know what's wrong with them, so you can figure that out with regards to how much money you've got to spend. We've been caught out a few times. I know me and Dan had this conversation. Do you want to jump in, Dan? I know you've got.
I was going to say, like, no, you're on a flow. You crack on. Go on. Keep going.
Now I've lost my flow. Just look like you're just desperate to.
No, I was going to say that I wanted to kind of contradict a little bit what you said, just to give a bit of context as well. At the 7 houses we've got, I've changed 4 kitchens.
Right, okay.
But the difference is 2 of them are purchase lease options, so I'm trying to add as much value on the front end as I possibly can. And the other 2, the landlord's paid for the kitchens. So that's the case of these properties are so run down. I initially went into this one property and I said to the landlord, are you going to be planning any refurbishment at all? Or bear in mind, this property is not being let. It can't rent it. He can't rent it. No one will take it. And he was like, no, I just need to change the cooker. It was a shithole. So I managed to open his eyes a bit, showed him some examples, and he agreed. He actually forked out £9,000 to refurbish the house. So again, it's just coming down to negotiations. I said, look, I'm more than happy to project manage it. We'll contribute, because it was going to cost about 13,000. I said, look, we'll contribute a percentage of this as well. So working on I worked a 6 to 8 month rule, depending on the term of the contract. But yeah, as long as the numbers stack, there's no right or wrong way. As long as the numbers stack and you're comfortable, you're safe, and you are going to profit. I think that's the key message there.
You've got to remember, once you've hit that 6 to 8 months, your return is infinite. You know, you're not talking about an ROI of 10%. You're talking about an infinite return on your investment for the period of that lease. It's pretty crazy when you think about it like that.
And I think to go back to Dan's point about negotiation, and actually something that we've only just started to do recently in the last couple is, make sure you negotiate that rent-free period of time, because that could massively make a difference to your numbers. And if you're going to come in and you're going to take away all of this landlord's pain, you're going to give them up to kind of 5 years worth of guaranteed income. You're going to come and cosmetically like refurb their property, bring it back to life, take care of it, take away all of their pain. I think you're in a pretty strong position there to be able to negotiate a rent-free period to be able to get that property to the standard that it needs to be able to get that income to start coming in, to therefore be able to to give that guaranteed rent to the landlord. So again, it's kind of just negotiating at the front end, building that rapport with your landlords. And I think from experience from both of us, or from all of us, that once you generally speaking, what we found is once you establish a relationship with one landlord, they've got more than one property. Generally speaking, they've got more than one property, which is what we found. So that then in itself opens up opportunities moving forward to just kind of take on more properties from them.
And they've all got mates as well with properties.
yeah definitely.
That's how we literally picked up our sixth, was a referral from one of our landlords. We paid them £50 for the referral, and they just we took it on.
So we've got another question from Jackie. For a house that you are converting to a HMO, how much does it roughly cost to get it up to standards that meets HMO? So that is quite a broad question in terms of, again, I think it just totally depends, and I know that's not the answer that you probably want to hear, and I guess it probably does depend on what area you're in.
The first thing you should really do is get onto your council's website and download. It'll probably have a different title for each council, but it'll be the minimum standards for HMO in your area, and it'll tell you exactly how many bathrooms you need per bedroom. It'll tell you exactly what the minimum fire standards are. So where do you need a fire door? How many fire doors do you need? What sort of smoke alarm system do you need? How many fire extinguishers? And all these things that are the upfront costs that you're going to need to do. It'll tell you exactly what you need. So it's really important that you download that document and read it properly.
Make sure when you're getting, you're making yourself compliant to this. And I know this is a stating the obvious, but get more than one quote for stuff. For fire doors, our first quote that we had was over £1,000 for a fire door, for one fire door. And then thank God that the second quote was £500, so it was literally half the price. So there's a massive range out there. So just kind of, I guess it's all about just getting that power team around you, and obviously that takes a little bit of time, and we're still building that as we speak now. But I think essential in rent-to-rent is make sure you've got a decent maintenance team around you, make sure you've got a good plumber, a good electrician. And actually there's a great question from Andrew. Well, it's not really a question, it was a statement really, about electrics and the new regulations. So the EICRs, so the electrical inspection condition reports that are out now, that's massive. You're looking at potentially £250 for one report now. And again, we've had different experiences here because we didn't have that in our contract, that we weren't liable for it. So in turn, out of the 7 HMOs that we have got at the minute, we have had to pay for 5 properties. However, we have managed to go back and negotiate that because we've got a good relationship with them, and we genuinely have got a really good relationship with them, that we will pay for the reports, but any work that comes out of that will be the landlords or the owners or their responsibility to pay for that, because we didn't get it written in our management agreement at the beginning. Lesson for us, massively learned. 5 properties and 250 quid, that's what, 1,250 quid.
When you take them all on at once, that's a big cost.
So but Dan, which is hit them down with your expertise in your management.
But no, I think the way you've got to look at it is rent-to-rent is the only 2 electrical safety, gas safe, and all those sort of certificates I paid for are the 2 purchase lease options we've got, because that's our responsibility. the way you've got to look at it is, why would I, like, for the licensing side of things, it's the landlord's property. It's their bricks and mortar. So the way we've looked at it is, look, this is your property, it's your license. We're going to be, so you've got to kind of, I place ourselves as the managers, essentially. We're the managers, we're the agents for the house. And what letting agent do you know that is going to pay for a gas safe or an electrical safety report? They're not. It doesn't happen. So that's the kind of view I've always had from the start. And yeah, definitely key just to get it in the contracts. And we put it in our offers, so it's clear from day one. We are responsible for maintenance up to this amount. So we offer to cover the maintenance up to £100. So any maintenance up to £100 we'll pay for. Anything over £100 is then the responsibility of the landlords, and then the licensing, anything related to certification or licensing, it comes down to the landlord's responsibility. So, for example, the most recent one we've just refurbished, we took it on. The landlord was a year out of date on their electrical safety certificate, which is not great considering they've let it all last year. In order to get up to speed with the current regulations, the landlords just had to fork out £640 to get all the alarms up to scratch and stuff, because I said, I'm not prepared to take it on without it. So if I hadn't got that in our contract, that would have been an extra £600 that I'd have had to fork out, plus £200 to do the actual certificate. So definitely worth thinking. I think it's more a case of a mindset, because as soon as you guys approached me last week saying, so you don't pay for it? It's like, no. But as soon as you've kind of got that in your head, it's like, why would you?
Yeah. And it's every negotiation is going to be slightly different. You know, if your first one comes along and the landlord is absolutely adamant that they're not paying for the gas safety, are you going to turn the deal down? Probably not, because we get our gas safeties for like 50 quid a year. It's hardly anything. But, you know, as you get more experience with negotiation, then actually you're in more of a position of power, once you've got a couple behind you, to be able to negotiate on certain elements, because you're not as desperate as you were when you're after your first deal. Yeah. So it will change over time. And it's about where you're comfortable with in the beginning and what you feel is right. And it's going to be different on every deal.
Do you want to hit this one up next, Dan? Nicholas?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. And hi, Nicola. Hope all is well. Yes. I use time stats. It has to happen for me, because I just remember one property I walked into. It was what was it? I think it was probably August, September time. Nice weather outside. I walked in. It was 27 degrees, windows open, no tenants in the house. I was pissed. And so from that day onwards, I've always put timer stats in the properties. So yeah, 100% recommend it. So for those that don't know what a timer stat is, the issue of we offer all bills included. I know the ladies here do as well. So if you imagine, if you're paying rent and you're not worried about the bills, you're not going to be bothered about turning the heating off and things like that. So the heating just stays on all day and just wasting energy, and the bills just skyrocket. So what a timer stat does is it allows the tenants still to be able to access the thermostat and the heating. They can turn the heating on and off, turn the temperatures up and down. But what it is a timer that they don't have to remember to turn the heating off. So you can either put it on for 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours. You can change the temperature on the other side, but at the end of that 30 minutes, 1 hour, or 2 hours, it will turn off. So it just means we've got a bit more control over it. Tenants have never had an issue with it. You can preset it so that it'll always come on if it ever drops below, 20 degrees in the house or 19 degrees in the house. But the tenants just can't keep it on all day long, and it's massively helped us there. So I can highly recommend that from our experience for sure. How much they are? 180 odd quid. I think I paid for the most recent model, so that helps.
Worth it.
Yeah, definitely worth it all the way.
Yeah.
Right, should we move on to the next question? Steph, do you want to hit this one?
Yeah, so what compliance do you need to operate a rent-to-rent business? So for us, there's two main areas of compliance. I think the first one is that you need to be registered with one of the property ombudsmans, because you're providing a service. So there's two. There's the PRS and so that's property redress scheme, and there's the property ombudsman, I think, is the other one, right?
TPO, TPO. Yeah.
I mean, if you Google, I think there's two main players, and legally you have to be registered with one of the two. What does that allow? Well, it doesn't really provide you with any protection or anything. What it does is it gives tenants a avenue to complain if you're not providing them a service to the required standard of what a property manager would provide. So that's the first one. It costs, I want to say, about £120. I can't even remember if that's enough.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is something like that, Steph. I think 120, 140 max. I think
it's a one-off cost. I don't think there's an ongoing cost.
I can't remember. I thought it was an annual subscription, but it's something we can look into that.
Yeah. So that's that one. And then the other one is you need to be ICO compliant. So that's the Information Commissioner's Office. It's the data protection essentially. And that's much cheaper. I feel like that's about 20 quid.
40 I pay.
Quid. And basically that just means that you register. You're basically registering to say that you handle data. Really, you should have a policy in your company that says how you handle data, and it just signs you up to their database to say that you do that. You have a named data controller, and that's that really. So they're the two main ones. Other things, we're members of the NLA, the National Landlords Association, which is now the NRLA combined with the RLA. We pay, well, actually, I did like an accreditation course, so I did a load of modules. It gave me an accredited landlord certificate, and what that means, it's not really a compliance, so to speak, but it gives us discount on our licenses. So it goes down from £950 for a license to £650 in Plymouth. So you get £300 off a license, which is pretty incredible. You have to put like 40 hours of CPD in or something like that. And then there's an ongoing CPD requirement. But it also gives you access, having that membership to online forums, to loads of questions and information. There's a landlord line you can ring. They do webinars and all that kind of good stuff. So it's actually a really good resource, the NLA. I think that's the only compliance. Can you think of anything else?
If anyone's got any others, drop them in the comments.
Yeah, 100% agree with you guys. Another thing for the NRLA is that if you ever have any concerns or anything like that, and you're a member, you can ring up, and they are very, very helpful. So, for example, I'm not actually a member of them, but I've got like a Cornwall responsible landlord scheme where they've got a little mini version, I suppose. But yeah, no, definitely, ICO and the PRS for me, they're the main ones really, for credibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good to put all their little logos on your letters. We do that, which again gives you a bit of credibility. One thing that comes up quite a lot is the client money account. Now we don't have a client money account, and I guess there's definitely two schools of argument with this. We sit on the side of we don't think you need it because we're not operating as letting agents. We're not holding on to a tenant's rent on behalf of the landlord. That rent belongs to us, and then we pay rent into another landlord. So when you look at the kind of detail of the law, I don't think we sit on the side that says we need to have a client money account. Some people do. It sits comfortably with them to do that. We don't feel like we need to do that, and I don't think the law says we need to do that. So we've not.
I actually called PRS and asked the question, Steph, and they actually agreed that no, in the rent-to-rent scenario, exactly what you said. No, we're not required to. So I'm in the same boat.
I mean, for us, we have. I mean, people might think this is overcomplicated, but within our business bank account, we actually have 4 kind of supplementary accounts within one account, and that just helps us with our tracking. So we, for instance, have a separate account for refurbs and maintenance. That's obviously a lot of money goes in and out of that when we're refurbing a property. But then we also have a separate account for kind of property outgoing. So like, your utilities will come out of that. Any kind of annual subscriptions, etc., will come out of that particular account. And then we have a 3-month kind of savers account where we hold the profit. And what's the other one that we have?
We have like an instant profit account where you can
access it straight away.
Sort of do the whole paying ourselves first and put the profit across at the beginning of the month. And then that's also for saving for tax. But then we also have a 3-month saving, which is less liquid, and that's for proper profits to go into. Yeah. So it's 4 accounts in total. There's an operations account, that's where the rent comes in and the kind of utilities go out. There's the refurb account, and this makes it all easier at the end of the year when you come to doing your accounting and you're looking at getting your tax deductions and stuff. Then we've got the kind of profit tax, and then the long-term profit account, and it just makes it easier.
So I reckon we should. I'm just conscious of time. I think we should try and get through some of these questions. Right. So Jackie's question: how did you find your power team? Great question. Networking, I would say. It's networking. I mean, we came to a brand new area actually. So for us, we didn't necessarily know loads of people in this area. So like
our friends and family who were tradesmen or anything.
Our first kind of buy to let, we just got a builder off builder.com or whatever it's called, and it was an absolute train crash. And it was, and we didn't have a clue what we were doing, and it was just
neither did
he. And our expectations were, we didn't align at all, and it was a nightmare. But actually, fast forward a year, we really, networking, and actually, even through some current landlords at the minute that we built up relationships with and rapport with, we've actually nicked some of their trades along the way, and now there are trades as well. So I guess it's just something that doesn't necessarily happen overnight, and and it's difficult. And I think once you get that power team and you get those right people around you, you've just got to absolutely treasure them, because they're going to be the absolute difference between success and failure. And we're so fortunate now. We've got we've got some great trades. We've got amazing cleaners, that are really flexible, and they go out their way for us. Electricians, plumbers, like we're building it, but we're building it all the time. And
the reality is, unfortunately, you're gonna have to kiss some frogs first, before you find the printers.
And once you find the printers or the princesses, shall we say, just hold on to them tight and treat them as absolutely as well as you possibly can. And that
I got one way to chuck in the mix. Found ours via buy and sell, Facebook buy and sell site. Just asked for recommendations. We got quite a few, be it somewhere literally husband out of work wanting to do some work. As soon as you meet them, you soon find out. But as you say, you get the frogs out of the way early doors. But it's probably taken me a good, almost 12 months, I'd say, to get a power team that I feel comfortable with, that I can go on holiday and I know they got my back. So yeah, definitely, so important.
Nicola, that's a great question. I'm not going to answer that now because I just think we could go off on a whole different live on that, and I will do a live on that, or we can do a live on it about VAs, how we, if people want to see that, like, go into the intricate details of how we got our VA in the first place, how we onboarded her, how we utilize her, the jobs that we get her to do for us, how we track it, all of that stuff. So there's so much to talk about with that I think we'll leave that for a different live, if that's all right, Nicola. But yeah, great question. Loads of activity. If anyone can hear that, that's a French bulldog snoring. Chasing.
I did like to ask.
It's not my stomach. I've had dinner. Sean, do you take holding deposits? Yes, absolutely, 100%. You need to do this because people are time wasters.
How much do you take?
We take £75 at the minute for our holding deposits.
Ooh, tight.
We take 75 quid, and then obviously that you take that, and then you take the room off the market. But you need to get some commitment from tenants, because tenants are flaky and they will let you down. And what you don't want to do is take your room off the market because they've told you 100 million% they're moving in next week. They've done all their paperwork, because we've had it now, and people just drop out for whatever reason. Life is life, shit happens. And if you haven't taken a holding deposit, then you just wasted a hell of a lot of your time. So we take a holding deposit, we take 75 quid, and then that comes off their main deposit when they pay that. So for instance, if the room deposit was £200, they pay 75 quid holding deposit. The day before they move in, they would pay the rest of the 125 quid. That's their £200 room deposit. We then put that on the deposit protection scheme, DPS, that gets logged. Jobs are good. And obviously when it comes to checkout, as long as there's no major damage or anything like that, then they get their deposit released to them straight away.
We do a fairly low deposit, £200. People will agree or disagree with that. There's a reason why people live in HMOs. It's because they're not great at saving. And we found in Plymouth particularly, most people can't even afford £200. And you've got to question why they couldn't afford £200 and question whether you want someone like that in your property. But any more than that, and you're really reducing your market. So you've got to find that balance that's right for you in your area. What do you do, Dan?
Add to that. Yeah, no, great point, Steph. We are 50 quid holding deposit, and I think, and another thing, I think it helps instill urgency as well. Like, we filled the last house of 5 beds in 2 days and without any tenants seeing it. And it was just a case of saying, we've got so much interest to this. If you want this room, we need £50 holding deposit of you. If you're not happy when you see it, we will refund you that deposit, but we just need a commitment because we've got so many people wanting it. And we managed to let the rooms very, very quickly. We had 2 instances where people had to pull out, but that was because they had changing circumstances and were no longer moving to the area. But yeah, definitely agree with the holding deposits, and with the main deposit, we only charge £150 with ours. And same reason. You're trying to make it affordable and attractive. And one of the questions, Sam, who got in touch with us off on Messenger earlier on, just a few questions, which was great, Sam. Thank you. How do you stand out from the crowd with others? And I think it is things like that. Considering what I look on Spare Room on my area, and the rents are literally the same price as another month's rent, and people haven't got that disposable cash, worryingly. So yeah, making your rooms affordable, it seems to help us definitely.
Cool. I reckon we should probably answer one more question. I don't know. What do you agree? I think we're an hour.
Yeah.
I think we should let
we
people
can do it. Yeah, I'm happy to do another one at some point with some questions.
We could literally talk about this all night. There's so many things we haven't actually covered that we wanted to, but we just wanted to try and answer people's questions as well. But I think we'll end on this question. So, do you have any get out clauses in your contracts? We absolutely do. Yeah. Both parties do. And again, from my point of view, again, this is going to depend on the particular deal at the particular time and the negotiation that you're going to do with that particular, the other party involved. We've got a slightly different get out clauses or kind of narrative within our management agreements. And our management agreements have been ratified by solicitors, so we pay quite a bit of money to have that done. That they would stand up in a court of law. But there is slight kind of nuances. Contract to contract, depending on what it needs to be. But I mean, do you want to add anything else to that?
I'm trying to think of the detail of the last one. So essentially, we say that during the first 6 months that we're tied in, and then after that we can give 6 months notice to end at any point during the term. The parity on both sides is that if any of us what do we say? So if we go bankrupt or we don't fulfill the terms of the management agreement, then the owner can withdraw, and vice versa. So if they don't do their end of the contract, we can withdraw. We also wrote into our most recent one about
the pro rata.
Yeah. So what was that about?
So I mean, essentially, both parties need to be protected, and both parties need to be comfortable with the level of risk that you're all taking on, because inevitably shit can go wrong, and you can't forecast against every single potential issue that could come about. But for instance, if we had taken on a rent-to-rent property and we smashed down, let's just say £10,000 on refurbing the whole thing, and it was 6 months in and they suddenly wanted to take it off, they wanted it back, you're up shit creek really, because you just spent £10,000 on a property and
not made any profit.
Not made any profit yet. So you need to be protected against that. So we had certain clauses in ours, and again the minutiae kind of escapes you right now, but it's generally around the fact that if somebody was suffering significant financial hardship, i.e. the owners, the landlords, and they wanted to take it back, they could. But we would need some form of, there'd need to be a pro rata on the amount of money that we had spent on that particular refurb, on any licensing fees that we'd taken on. So, obviously we chatted about earlier on about, kind of HMO licenses, for instance. But if we were going to take a property from somebody, for instance, if it was a 3-bed or a 4-bed, and we were going to make it a 5-bed licensed HMO, then in my eyes, that's our responsibility to get that HMO license sorted out and to do everything that we need to do that. So, it's stuff like that. If you're going to spend that money, you need to be protected in that management agreement. If the rug was to get pulled, that you would be reimbursed for that investment that you put at the front end. So, yes, in answer to the question, we have got get out clauses in our contracts, and so have the other side, but they've been thought out, so ideally everyone's protected sufficiently.
Yeah, and just to add from my side then, in that I suppose the whole contract, the whole point of this contract is, as you rightly said, is protect them and protect us. And I think each party has got their obligations to ensure that this is run legally and efficiently, whether that be the landlord paying their mortgage payments, whether it be us making sure we're keeping up with all of our promises. And so the clauses we've got in our contracts are basically, if either of us default on any of these particular areas, then the other party has the right to give notice. And then, as you rightly said, we've got a compensation sliding scale essentially at the end of the contract, whereby if we, just to make numbers sake easy, we were to pay 10 grand of a refurb. If they were, for whatever reason, to pull the plug on us at 6 to 12 months, we would get the full refurbishment cost back. If it was between 13 months to 18 months, so basically, if it's depending on the duration of the contract that we're into, it depends on how much they would refund us if they had to exit early. One example is that we've got a property whereby the landlord's a bit worried. It's a bit, you could argue it maybe a bit dodgy, but it's an ex-council house, and there's a clause in the covenant that says it can't be used as a business for business purposes. So he's like, well, it's not a business, but because he's running it as his own private. He's not running it through a business, so he's kind of like trying to find loopholes. So what we've said is, I've said, I'm happy to work with you, but if the council were to pull the plug on this, I need security that you're going to refund me and compensate. So he was like, look, I'm more than happy to do that. So we've included this compensation sliding scale just to give us that security that if the plug was to be pulled at any time, he said he's had it for 5-6 years and it's never been an issue. So it's more a case of just security for us, and he didn't have to tell us that. So it was nice just to get that from the start, really. So yeah, it's covering your asses and covering theirs, definitely.
Couple of quick tips just to add in at the end. Make sure you come to an agreement on the furniture. So if what's going to happen, are you going to keep their furniture? Are you going to put your own in? Who's going to remove the furniture, because that's really expensive? What's going to happen at the end of the agreement to the furniture that you've bought? Are you just going to hand it back? Are they going to pay for it? These are little details that become really important. Second thing is, if you're getting the property with the white goods in, make sure you go around and check that the white goods work. We've fallen foul of that with dodgy fridges that we've then just had to fork out to pay for new fridges because the landlords denied that they knew anything about a broken fridge, and things such as that. And then the final point that I was going to make was just about taking on with vacant possession versus tenants. We have been stung by that, and I think going forward, we're only ever going to take on vacant properties. You may have your own views on that. It just looks nice taking on a fully tenanted property, actually transferring them onto your management agreements, getting them to buy into your business model. The fact that you're going to probably have to raise rent to be able to meet the guaranteed rent.
Biggest nightmare ever.
And you're going to have to refurb these proproperties. It's just a headache from start to finish, even with just one tenant in the property. So we've decided we're only ever going to take on vacant possession from now on, even if it does mean that those initial few weeks are quite tense when you're trying to fill them. In the long run, you're going to get tenancy that you've picked, that you've kind of ratified and verified, and that you're happy with, and that they're happy to pay the rent that you're asking them. So yeah, just a couple of points from me, really.
I think, should we look to wrap up?
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about filling rooms, have we?
No, we're gonna have to do another one, aren't we?
ABC, is it?
Should we just very, very quickly just talk about filling rooms? We haven't talked about that, have we?
Go on then. We've got 8 minutes until 9:30.
We'll wrap it up in 8 minutes. I'll go first. So basically, just get yourself out on every single platform that you possibly can. Like, voids are not an option. For us, we use Spare Room. We pay for the featured ads on Spare Room, because for us, again, that small investment is worth it. And our market in Plymouth is, it's not as buoyant perhaps as, for instance, Dan's market down in Cornwall. So we have to work fucking hard to get people in. It does not fall on our lap at all. So Spare Room, and we pay for the upgrades on Spare Room.
Just a note on Spare Room, so to jump in, people don't come to you in Plymouth, and this may be the same in your area. You have to come to them, and that part of that is how the platform works, because you have to pay to be able to contact people. People don't want to pay, so what they do is they put an ad on that they want a room, and they expect the landlord to come to them. That's just how it works in Plymouth. So every single day we have to contact as many people who have put ads on that day for them to then come back to us. It's a pain in the ass. We finally got someone else to do it for us. But it's really labour intensive. So don't worry if people aren't contacting you. You may just need to do that in your area.
Do you want to add on, Dan?
I'll just wrap it on. As you say, we've been quite fortunate with the market we've got. I've only ever used spare rooms or market rooms. I've just literally verbally agreed our 7th deal yesterday, so chuff with that, and I've pretty much filled it today. And we don't get we haven't even signed the contract yet, so I've not signed anything legally, but I've got basically people that are messaging us. It's basically just trying to build that pipeline. We've only just handed over our most recent number 6, and there were so many people still. So I paid for bold ads, so I just left it on there just to keep it ticking over. So people kept coming to us. So when people still message us, I said, look, sorry, we filled this room, but we're likely to bring up another property coming up. Can I keep the details? If you're happy, I'll contact you. So I've literally just messaged yesterday, just messaged all the people that left our numbers and asked to be contacted. Quite a few of them turned around and said they've now found a room, but 3 of them have asked for a video tour or something. And also the landlord, oddly, it's a 4-bed house, and the landlord has referred us to 3 people already. It's like, what is he doing? He could have filled it himself. So he could have filled it himself, but he wanted the hands-free, stress-free service, and that has been great.
I think just on that, a lot of people ask, how do you get around? I think that was off the back of another question that we had before we came on, of how do you make it attractive in terms of the numbers, the bottom line. But it's exactly that. People don't, landlords that have been doing it for 20, 25 years have had enough. They've had enough of, and HMO tenants are demanding. There's no getting away from that.
The difference here, Steph, Ruth, sorry. The difference here was it's a student house, and these tenants are professionals, and he was just so scared of pivoting or changing because he said, I'm just not used to you working with professionals. I said, you just forget that they're professionals. They're just humans. So, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so spare room, absolutely. Go on, change your photos over every single morning, renew your ad every single morning. If you've got a VA, get your VA to send messages out every morning. If you're doing it yourself, do it yourself. Do it before you go to bed. We just become obsessed with spare room, even though we have someone else doing it for us now. We're still obsessed with it because the voids are just not an option for us.
Get yourself an agent board, get your branding on it, have it outside your HMOs, and never take it down.
Yeah.
Even if the property's full, you can do what Dan just said, and you can pipeline all those tenants that ring you and just put them on a database somewhere, so that when you do get a room that's available, you just ring them up straight away. We actually got a referral from our board, didn't we? That's how we met one of our landlords.
Yeah.
They just saw it and was like, what are you doing? Quite like the sound of that. Do you want to look at our houses?
Yeah.
Amazing. One last tip I'd give to anybody, and I wish I did this so much earlier on my first ones, is as soon as the property's a refurb, every single room, but at times, so go around, dress one room.
You just stalled then, just as you were about to say that kind of key nugget of information. He's stalled again.
He's gone.
This is what happens down in the southwest. Is he going to come back? Is he going to come back? We'll wait for him to come back.
This was the golden nugget, the thing that everyone's been waiting for. He's gone.
But yeah, spare room. Just get obsessed with spare room. Gumtree. Get your ad up on Gumtree, and again, we pay for the featured ad on Gumtree. Facebook Marketplace, you can get loads of. They're generally a different clientele, I would say, of prospective tenant that's going to come to you. But you just want to get yourself on as many platforms as possible. Your kind of local, buy and sell property groups in your area. So rent and buy groups within your area. Leaflets in your hospitals, in your universities if you're doing students, down the commercial areas. Sorry, Dan, you just went. So just.
No, I know. Sorry, I could hear everything you were saying. I just couldn't see.
But yeah, and it's just word of mouth as well, and financial cash incentives that you can give to your current tenants, which is what we've done actually with one of our 5 beds, is a financial incentive. And they want to bring their friends in because they want to live, with people that they know are good people and that they get along with. So if you can give them a financial incentive, well, actually, if you bring one of your mates in, I'm going to give you 50 quid, 100 quid, whatever it may be. And then you've got rid of a room and you know that people are going to get on. So win-win. Anyway, Dan, what's this?
Critical point. No, we're just going to leave it for next time. I'm not going to bother now. What I was going to say is what has been amazing. I've filled our last 11 months. The way we've done that. The way we've done that is it seriously? I'm just not going to move. We have filled the last 11 rooms without doing one viewing.
Boom, there you go. Millions.
And the tip is simply when you've done your refurb, take all your marketing photos while it's dressed, video tour the room. do every single room, then video tour the house while it's dressed. So you've got a bank of the house video, the communal areas in one video, and then every individual room is a video. So as soon as a room comes available, you can just put the photos up on spare room, and as soon as someone's interested, you send them the videos.
Yeah.
That's all we've done, and we've not had to do one physical viewing for the last 11. We started doing that pre-COVID, and through COVID, that sorted us right out.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's definitely a massive top tip there. Right, should we call it? I think we're at 1 hour 30, and it doesn't even feel like we touched the surface. But,
No.
I hope we all hope that that's been of some value. Like we all kind of alluded to before we came on this live tonight on the run up, is that we've only been doing this. Steph and I have only been doing Rent-to-Rent for 6 months. Dan's 12 months. We're all so new to this game. But we're just getting on with it. We're just cracking on. We're making mistakes along the way, but we're just diving in and we're just committing and we're just taking action. And it's difficult. It's definitely not an easy game. I would say it's definitely not a strategy for the faint hearted, shall we say. You've got to be prepared to pull up your sleeves, get down on a tactical level. And just be prepared to have to slog it out, because before you get to the point where you can start to systemize and automate and bring staff in and start to scale and make it an actual business rather than being a full-time landlord, it's tough. And we have massively come to realize over the last 6 months that we don't want to be full-time landlords. That is not why we're doing what we're doing. Absolutely not. So, we are definitely very, very focused, super focused on making this a business that is hands off. And we're not there yet. We probably won't be there in 6 months' time, but we will be there. And that's certainly our goal for Rent-to-Rent. But yeah, I don't know if you want to say a couple of words, Dan, just before I officially close it.
No. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
Anything to add?
You've got spot on. Nothing really to add. Thank you for having me. Other than that, really.
Thank you for coming on.
First ride community collab.
Yeah, and like the little banner says across the screen. And I could have been doing more, but it's just too many things going on right now. But yeah, I'll download this. I will get my VA to put it on YouTube. And again, we'll definitely do a VA live at some point as well if people would like to see that. But yeah, the video will be saved. Hopefully it's been of some value. Dan, thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to do this. Sorry
about my internet.
No worries. That's just what we have to put up with it down southwest. Yeah. But yeah, I hope that's been of value, guys. And thank you for tuning in. Take care. It's Friday tomorrow. We're almost at the weekend. And remember, whatever you do, enjoy the ride. See you later, guys. Right, I just need to figure out how we switch this off now. Right, Dan, you can stay in. We're going to debrief now. Right, see you later, guys. Take it easy.
Bye.